Alright guys, how's it going? I hope you guys are all doing good. Today we're going to be doing some spark plugs. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to replace your spark plugs. If you're not mechanically inclined, maybe don't try this at home. Otherwise, if you watch a bunch of YouTube videos like this one and share them and comment, you will do your spark plugs on your own and save yourself quite a bit of money. Typically, if you go to the dealership, they're charging between $300 and $350. So it is expensive. So here we go. So these are all the tools that you're gonna need, and I'm gonna leave the links down below so that you guys can acquire the same tools to do this project. I'm holding my camera in one hand. Trying to do this job is going to be a little bit challenging, but we'll get this done. Now, I've driven the vehicle for a little bit, so it is a little hot. You might want to wait till the engine has cooled off before you start replacing the spark plugs. Later on, we'll do a video on replacing the valve cover gasket, because you can see there's a little bit of a leak there. So we'll do that eventually. One thing that I do recommend is wearing some gloves. You know, like, don't scratch your hands. Just pull up like that, and I think this one has 4 of them. And there, just like that, this cover comes off. Now, if you flip it over, you see that it has some rubber, just grommets in there, and this is what holds this cover in place. Now, this cover here I purchased, as you can see the marking there, at a pick and pull, because the other one was broken. And those rubber grommets hold on to these little tabs right here. So, alright, so now we're getting to the good stuff here. So the spark plugs in this vehicle, once you pull this apart, you can see that they're sitting right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-cylinder engine will use 4 spark plugs, and this one here has the coils on top of each plug. Some vehicles are a little different. The easiest way to disconnect the coils is to hold on to this tab here and pull backwards. Obviously, you're not going to pull forward. So you disconnect all 4 of them. You move that out of the way. Now, this bolt here is a 10mm bolt, so we're going to go and grab that and remove those coils. Alright guys, so we have a 10mm socket. You don't need the extension, to be honest with you, but I'm already there. These things are not that tight. You don't want to tighten them too hard. They once they are broken loose, they literally come off by hand. Make sure you don't lose these bolts, because it would be very difficult to find them. I don't have a tray, a magnetic tray. Typically what you want to use is a magnetic tray, but I put them somewhere where I'm gonna see them and remember where they are. You could be using a ratchet, like a power ratchet, or I'm doing things by hand. There's power tools, but I don't want to grab the one that I have. It's just lazy. But maybe one day I'll just show you that when we do the valve cover here, we'll probably have to use that, because there's a whole bunch of bolts there that have to come off. All right, so now that you've removed all those bolts, you're gonna pull off. Oh, there you go. See that there? That's definitely a valve cover gasket. So there's oil seeping through the seal, which is not a good thing. That means that the valve cover gasket is definitely no good and it's leaking. So we're gonna have to do that pretty soon. But there's no oil inside. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. There's no oil contamination in the boot, so that's okay. We'll clean it off. Now I normally place the coil. I don't switch them around. I just place the coil right beside that socket so that I remember where they go. So at this point, you're going to be using the 5/8 spark plug socket, the 3/8 extension, and your 3/8 ratchet. So there's going to be a bit of a challenge doing it with one hand. So I'm just going to pause the video, break them loose, and we'll continue on in a sec here. Alright, so I broke the spark plugs loose. They were pretty tight. These things are pretty old, so I don't think they've ever replaced them, or maybe they did, but these ones are old. So we're gonna remove all 4 of them. So I looked at the other sockets here, and it looks like the only one that has oil leaking into it, and a little bit, it's very little, is the this one here. So I'm going to have to replace, like I said, that valve cover gasket pretty soon. I can't wait to do that so I can show you guys how to do that. So we're gonna remove all 4 spark plugs, and then we'll put the other ones in here, so the new ones. So I'm just gonna show you guys a quick comparison between the old plugs and the new plugs. These things are pretty damn old, I think. Check this out. They are pretty worn out. Not very good. So we're gonna replace these babies, and hopefully this car will be a little more efficient and hopefully have a little more power, even if it's going downhill. Make sure that you look at the spark plugs, at the new ones, and make sure that they're not cracked, they're not dropped, and the gaps in there look proper. These things are pre-gapped. I know that in the old days you had to use a gauge and gap them, but these ones here are already pre-gapped. Now the important thing, like I said, is to make sure that they don't have any imperfections or cracks, because that will definitely give you some troubles. I know that these things are supposed to be torqued. I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm not going to use one. But I typically go and do it by feel. This is something that I would recommend, that if you have no experience, get a torque wrench, find the torque specs for the spark plug, and torque the spark plugs. A lot of people don't do it. They do it by feel. Obviously you don't want them super tight, and of course you don't want them loose. There is, on these spark plugs, you'll see a little just a little crush gasket here, or not a gasket, you'll see a little crush washer right there, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to crush that, and that's all you need to do. You don't have to go super crazy on these things. So if you don't have a torque wrench, consider getting one, borrow one from a friend. If not, do it by feel. And if you can't do it, this is why sometimes it's best if you take it to the dealership, and they charge quite a bit of money to replace the plugs, because they know what's going on. They got a good feel for them because they've been doing them for so long. So that's the reason why sometimes it's best to pay. But in our case here, I'm just gonna tighten them here. So we have the 5/8 socket, we got the spark plug. You can see there that we have the crush washer. And I've seen some people just grab a power tool and just ram these things in. I don't do that. I do it by hand, and I tighten them by hand, or if I have a torque wrench, I will use a torque wrench. It is important that you don't over tighten these plugs to the point where you're cracking things, because that would not be a good scenario. So I recommend that if you don't have a torque wrench, you can do it by feel. I know that you guys will have your opinions and your comments, and I would love to hear them and see what other people think. But I always tighten them by feel. And I usually go, after the washer has crushed, I usually go about a quarter of a turn, and that's it. It's always worked well for me, so I'm sure it'll work well for you guys. So I'm gonna get the rest of these plugs in here, and then we'll move to the last part. So when you pull the coil out, make sure that you check the little boots on the end. Right, this one here, it's not bad. I'm not gonna replace it because it's still pretty soft. But typically, if they're brittle and cracked, you want to replace them, because if you don't, the spark will not go straight through the plug. It'll just kind of bounce around and give you some misfire codes and issues. So just check them all, make sure they're all good. These ones here are pretty damn good, so I'm gonna leave them the way they are. So we're gonna install the coils back. So that's the third one, and then the last one. Make sure you push them all the way in, and now you can go back and install the connector. All right, so we're gonna tighten these ones up. I'm doing it by hand. Make sure that there's no make sure that the little bolt is not cross-threaded. And now you grab your 3/8. You grab your 3/8 ratchet. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm doing this with one hand, and I just a little bit, just tight, hand tight, and you just want to make sure that they are tight, right? That's more than enough. Again, if you have a torque wrench, you can torque them, but it'll work fine if you just do what I did. All right, guys, so I ended up off camera. I had to install that hose back in. You guys can see those two little arrows right there. You're supposed to line those up. And this other end goes into the air box right there. So we're gonna go ahead and install this. Now it just pushes in place. And now you can go here, and again, you can see the arrows there. Line those up. Line those arrows up. And there you go, guys. So we've done some spark plugs. Now you got to make sure the vehicle starts and runs properly. So we're going to go ahead and do that. and it runs great. Alright guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. We managed to install the spark plugs. If you have any comments, put them down below. If you have any questions, put them down below. And if you could please like, share the video, and don't forget to click on that bell there so that you guys can get notified when I put up new videos. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you guys watching this video, and I really hope that this video has helped you save a little bit of money doing your own repairs. Till the next time.